All right, so we are beginning our massage treatment. One of the first things we do is we make sure the draping is even on both sides, and we double check for the bolster that it's located right under the knees so that the joints can be soft and comfortable. Ruby, is everything comfortable for you?
Yeah.
Awesome. So you just double check with the client, confirm everything is good to go. Take a couple of deep breaths for me. Notice my feet are flat on the ground, back is straight, joints are stacked. Working from my center of gravity, using just the edge of my chair to support myself. With these compressions, I've allowed my client to take a couple deep breaths. I'm going to undrape. So for the client today, I have a blanket and I have a top sheet. So whenever we drape, we want to keep it super neat. You start neat, you end neat, and it works. Okay. So what we want is 2 to 4 inches below the clavicle. Okay. We're going to secure one on each side. Notice the draping, I'm using the side of my hand. One and done. Okay? So one fold, one tuck, one and done. Keep it neat, not too fussy. Today I'm using coconut oil. Alrighty. Can you take a deep breath for me? Beginning with effleurage. Using the side of my hand to come down the SCM. Fingertips below the clavicle, over the pecs. Hugging the shoulders. I can feel the pads of my fingertips just run along the spine of scapula. It's really good to get a feel for where all those bony landmarks are so that you can trace the muscles from beginning to end. Whenever you're giving someone a massage, you want to make sure you always work the entire muscle. Just using the pads of my fingers to run up the rhomboids. I'm getting right up the medial border of the scapula. And then I work my way in toward the midline, right along both sides of the spinous process in the lamina groove. Take a big breath for me. As she exhales, you can let your head rest in my hands. Thank you. So that's a nice way to end the third effleurage, kind of make it a little bit fancy, integrate some other techniques. Nice hold, allowing the client to just breathe. And Ruby, can you envision just space between each and every vertebrae? And feel your back elongate. Let your head rest. Mm-hmm. Now we're going to get into some petrissage. I'm going to begin with some kneading using my distal knuckles. You can alternate. And these proximal or these distal knuckles here, they're tracing the spine of scapula, working all the attachment for the upper trapezius. As you can see, my client's beginning to let her neck and head just relax and receive the treatment. The other type of petrissage you can use is lifting, and you can grab the belly of the upper trapezius. You'll feel the levator scapula. You'll feel the transverse processes over here where the scalenes attach. And you can just work from top to bottom to the lateral attachments of the upper trapezius and back up. Last type of petrissage is using the knuckles to gently rotate the head. Now, in order to do this technique properly, you need to have already identified where the transverse processes are, where the spinous processes are, and where the lamina groove is. You want to make sure when you bring your knuckles up, you're going right into the lamina groove and following the same trail back down. If you hit right along the transverse processes, it can be painful. So just make sure you go slow enough that you're not hitting any of the bony landmarks. And let your shoulders relax for me. If you did want to include some pec work at this point, working cross body can be very good. You can easily just pull or push the tissue away from the midline. Make sure you have your joints stacked. I usually just use one hand so that I'm not too much in the client's face. If that technique feels too uncomfortable for you, if your arms are not long enough to do cross body technique, you can actually work on the same side and pull the tissue rather than to push. And you can use both hands this way as well. So I lead with a gentle stroke using just the sort of, pads of my fingers right there, and then an open fist or a soft fist. And I'm not using a lot of leverage. I'm keeping it really gentle because there's a lot of bones through the pecs, right? The ribs. So I don't want to just press right into them with my fist. Alrighty. Transition to the other side if you like. And again, lead with an open hand. Remember, whenever you perform Swedish massage, but massage in general, you always want to work superficial to deep. You never want to just go straight into the deepest layers. Now for face treatment, if you'd like, I like to do a general sweep around the mouth, in between the eyes, and around the eyeballs, right? Around the eye sockets. Okay, you can trace the mandible. Fingers running up the masseter. Okay, notice I didn't add any extra oil, by the way. Okay, you want to keep oil to a minimum on people's face. You can trace the zygomatic bone. Now, whenever you're going back, maintaining contact with the client between strokes is very useful. It makes the technique feel more fluent, or the massage feel more fluent. You can actually let your jaw relax. You can use the pads of your fingers or your palms to petrissage the masseter. you open your mouth slightly, it'll help your jaw relax. Okay. Coming up to the frontalis, you can use some nice thumb strokes. And you can literally feel the tension just leave the frontalis muscles. You'll literally feel the pressure just drain from these muscles when the clients have a lot of tension through here. Again, just make sure you take your time to let the client experience the treatment. You don't want to move too fast. This temple massage. Gentle ear pulls. Be careful for jewelry. And always close out with a nice effleurage to reconnect everything. Take a deep breath. And you gently allow the client's head back to the table. You don't want to remove your hands too abruptly. Just sort of linger for a minute so that the transition into the next part of the body is smooth. Alrighty, so I completely forgot a bit in the sequence that I wanted to make sure I cover, and that's the scalene petrissage. And so we're gonna just cover that so you guys can see what that's about. Alrighty. So again, just some warming strokes and then we'll get right into it. Let your head rest in my hands. So I'm going to start on the left here. Now notice, I've gotten really good at this, so I forgot to explain here. When you cradle the client's head, you sort of just want to create a C around the client's ear, right? You can gently let their head rest on yours. It's very likely that if the client's head feels sort of uncomfortable in your hand, that it's also uncomfortable for them. It's uncomfortable for you, it's probably uncomfortable for them. Ruby, you can just let your head rest. Thanks. Alright, so we do one effleurage for one side. Now, typically I get in a little bit of a lunge position to do this because I'm working with one hand. And I am just petrissaging from insertion to origin. Going from bottom to top. Now, Ruby, is the pressure too much? Not enough? Or is it all right?
It's all right.
Okay. Am I in your throat at all?
No.
Okay. Alrighty. Now you can also add in some firmer gliding strokes at this point for the posterior neck muscles, splenius capitis, splenius cervicus. And as you can see, her neck and head just kind of move with the technique. These are really nice. You just want to make sure you stay in that supraspinatus fossa above the spinous scapula and over into the lamina groove. Okay, those are the bony landmarks you want to watch out for. Supraspinatus fossa above the spine of scap and the laminar groove. Okay, you can do some petrissage for the occipitals and for the temporalis in this position as well. Effleurage out. Supporting the client's head. And I'm going to get right into the other side smoothly. Alright, so one way you can tell if the client's head is relaxed or not is if the SCM is popping. Ruby, can you push your head against my hand up here? Okay, let it go. Can you push against my hand? Like up toward the ceiling? There you go. So you see when it contracts and when it relaxes. Okay. So we effleurage, and then we begin the petrissage. Now you want to be very careful in here. You have the brachial plexus passing through here. Okay, a lot of lymph nodes. So if you start feeling little bumps, you know, it's not necessarily adhesions. Muscles are going in, different directions, and all the different structures are in there. If you feel a pulse, get off of it. Definitely a blood vessel. So you just want to make sure you're staying on the bellies of the scalenes. If you're not sure through palpation, go look at a picture of the scalenes again, just to make sure that you're actually following the direction of the muscles. Supraspinatus fossa to the laminar groove. And that is it.